Warm welcome, everybody, and welcome to the Ericsson program from the Mobile World Congress here in Barcelona. Today we're going to cover the enterprise opportunities and what we see cooking there. My name is Peter Linder. I'm heading up thought leadership for Ericsson in North America. And we put together 5 different sessions for you here tonight. We're going to cover one overview, going to go in more specifically into private networks and wireless WAN. We're going to look about virtual cellular networks and what role they can play. We're going to drill into the open network APIs and how that is coming in as a new opportunity for us. And we're going to also look a little bit higher up and saying, well, what can a digital airspace look like when we're using cellular network for looking at opportunities above us? Throughout this session, we will have a number of different stations which we're going to, and we would like to encourage you to ask questions during the sessions here, because after each of the sessions here, we're going into taking a few questions before we move to the next station. And also for the questions that we're not able to answer, we will send you a written answer to all of those that contribute you afterwards. So with that, let's go to the first station here. And here on the first station, we're going to meet 2 of my colleagues, Pooja and Taimur. Warm welcome.
Thank you very much.
Hello, hello. Here we're talking about giving our customers an overview of what's really going on in the enterprise space. And if I start with you, Pooja, what is it that we're trying to get across here? What is it that we're seeing, that we're conveying?
Yes, there is a wide canvas of opportunities for enterprises, and enterprise is such a wide term anyway. So we are showing we see opportunities across the spectrum of enterprises, which could include small and medium enterprises, large enterprises, industrial enterprises, as well as public sector. So what we are seeing is a plethora of opportunities and use cases that sit across the entire base of this enterprise segment, essentially.
So when we're talking about these enterprise opportunities, are there also, do we start to see things where, are we only talking about use cases, or are we looking into use places as well?
No, I think we're looking into both. We're looking into use places, specific use places, and we're looking at use cases as well in terms of pockets of opportunity.
Yeah.
But I think, for example, on a wide level, let's just put it that way, I think we're looking at use cases that sit across agility, and that can help enterprises become more agile. We're looking at use cases that can sit across advancing operations faster for them and making more efficiencies. And we're looking at use cases that can help them to be more secure and more resilient. And then we can deep dive on any one of them. So for example, if we look at the store, we're seeing that with the wireless connectivity, we can get in the store up and running a lot faster than what we can have with a fiber or a wired connectivity. Or we can even provide backup in a store where they already have fiber. But the best use case is around the fact that you can have a pop-up store, you can have fast connectivity, you can hit the ground running faster, you can make revenue from day one, essentially. If we look at the other side of advancing operations, let's look at the example of factory. This is truly an example where the factory can advance their operations a lot faster. You are seeing in the background connected operations, quality assurance, worker safety, all being enabled through 5G and automation, thereby helping them make those efficiencies and advancing their operations faster. And then let's look at the example of municipality. Here we are seeing an example of an incident in the background, and here I think we want to be able to give secure information to the first responders and the people, and I think this is a use case for security and resilience for us. So I think we're seeing a plethora of use cases and use places that sit across the whole spectrum.
That's a really good overview, and I like the fact that you're showing here 2 or 3 different examples of use cases in each place, so that's something that you really can start with. Taimur, I know you've been working across a lot of industries over the last few years here. Where is all these things with private networks and so on starting to scale, and what do you see the difference between different industries?
Right, so no, that's a really great question, and Pooja gave a good overview, about the different segments. And when it comes to the industries, I mean, we looked into the small, medium enterprise example, but if you talk about larger industries where there's a need to have that infrastructure, which is private, to guarantee that type of requirements on the bandwidth, reliability, and latency. We see examples. I mean, let's start with, again, taking the discussion further with the use cases. There are three types of use cases that we see being adopted by the industry. The first type is around all the sort of sensors, and sensors being video surveillance type of solutions. The second category is about autonomous vehicles, where we see more and more examples of AGVs getting into the picture. And the third type of use cases is getting the workers connected. And that is also, what if the workers have handheld sensors and they're able to scan that in a much faster and in a much more productive manner, the different types of maintenance-related activities. So considering that, we can talk about warehouses, logistics, ports, as well as utility sectors, and then manufacturing, of course. I mean, this is where we see these three type of categories of use cases being adopted.
So you see a lot of commonalities between the use cases between different sectors here. So it's not only that each and every vertical maturing on its own, but quite a lot go into each other.
And I think this is something we learned from working with service providers and in the industry, that you could have an horizontal approach where you take a set of use cases, and strategy being you apply those across different verticals, versus you take a specific vertical and then apply a variety of use cases within the vertical. I think it all depends upon the strategy the service providers have, the role that they would like to play in the value chain. These are all the examples that we see being early adopted in terms of the use cases.
Got another question for you. It's a little bit since Ericsson acquisition of Cradlepoint. We've also talked a little bit about, or quite a bit about, wireless WAN and the opportunities in that area. How have you seen that develop?
Yeah, I think that's a really exciting area. Pooja already, gave you the example of temporary sites. So that's one sector. Pop-up stores, offices, restaurants. I mean, and then to be able to manage that multiple sites, and what is the best way to manage them efficiently in a secure way, through be able to, to be able to configure that, and also with enhanced capabilities such as SD-WAN and security, ensure that they get the sort of the level of larger enterprise-grade requirements. So I think this is kind of a key value proposition in that. The second sector is the sort of the vehicles, connecting the vehicles, like police cars or any business that needs to be mobile. So a fleet of vehicles being managed, having that connectivity within them, and so that you're able to do your business, even being mobile and outside, working remotely, for example. And the third one is IoT. This is about connecting different types of billboards or charging stations, etc. And to be able to manage that in a way that you can address a variety of these type of needs on a larger scale, leveraging the public connectivity infrastructure.
No, but that's really good.
Wireless WAN, we already have 36,000 customers on board with Cradlepoint, so they are serving that market quite well across all of these use cases, in vehicle, small office, pop-up offices, as well as IoT. So
36,000.
Yes, plus customers. So that's a big, it's a big number.
You've both been here now for 2 days talking about this. I know you came very well prepared. What is the most interesting conversations you're having?
Maybe I can start. I think the most interesting conversation that we see both, service providers who are in the early stage of adopting 5G, as well as those who have adopted it for some time. They have invested in 5G, but they like to have this type of canvas to start the discussion, to be able to set the scene that, okay, what are those use cases? What are those segments? What is the variety of solutions that can be maybe offered as a pre-package and maybe more as a long-term solution, leveraging the more advanced standalone capabilities? And I think it makes sense to them, as we've done in the recent Ericsson Mobility Report. Also, we have defined a framework of different horizons, that what is here and now, how you can leverage the baseline connectivity, how you can leverage the adjacent segments such as wireless WAN and fixed wireless access, and then gradually bringing in the differentiated experience.
I think the key takeaway is that the CSPs are now, I mean, they have looked at enterprise and public sector, as a segment, but I think there's an increased level of interest in enterprise and public sector now, increasingly with the types of opportunities that are coming up with 5G, and also for the fact that it means a certain opportunity of revenue that comes quite in a standard way from enterprises. I think the other takeaway has been a lot of them are, getting an understanding of how to maneuver in the 5G map, essentially. And so then, if they have, they take 5G on board, how can they advance forward? What are these enhanced mobile broadband cases that they can build a foundation and move forward from there? But then, of course, we have the immediate opportunities with the connectivity with fixed wireless access, we also have the business internet version. So we have both, the consumer home as well as the business internet, as well as wireless WAN. These are all existing opportunities for them to cash in on, and then move on that 5G journey forward. So then, as it progresses, they can decide to have more. When they have more differentiated connectivity, they can see how they want to play the network slicing, whether it's in a private network, like a factory, and see how how they want to tier these slices based on the experience that they want to have. Or they could go on a public network and show slicing. But of course, the eventual end goal for us is to build that ecosystem picture.
Yeah.
With the network APIs and connectivity and seamless experiences across the ecosystem, which we're sort of enabling with Vonage now, and the API story, where Temur is the expert on the API story.
That's really good. You've had this picture up, and I know there's been tons of people here during the whole day. Take us through very briefly and what is the Four Horizons all about.
Yeah, so I think probably you got a chance to discuss the consumer angle already with this picture, but let's have the same analogy and same reference for the enterprise segment. And that is basically leveraging the existing enhanced mobile broadband. How are the existing business customers being supported, through better packages offered by 5G, better bundles, etc. So I think this is more or less leveraging the enhanced mobile broadband towards the postpaid and the existing business customers. But the next step, as we have touched upon already, looking into the map, is the adjacent profit pools, leveraging the baseline connectivity, which is the fixed wireless access and the business internet version of it, as well as the wireless WAN segments. And then comes the differentiated part, where you get into the things, as you saw in the consumers, the online gamers need a differentiated experience. People sitting in a stadium require higher quality of experience. If they are an influencer, they want to upload in something and guarantee that access. What about enterprise segment? Private networks, slicing solutions, leveraging those capabilities, addressing those more stringent requirements. So that's where we start seeing the evolution. And then, of course, it will only make sense if you're able to open up the ecosystem towards a large number of millions of developers, as well as thousands of enterprises or millions of enterprises. I mean, it depends on the country, the scale, and the model that you would like to use. And you know that there's a model that we're already using with Vonage, and I'm sure you're going to have much more discussion on that how can you reach this large, expose these large set of network capabilities, like authentication, differentiated quality experience, as well as device location. So there's a multitude of use cases that can be enhanced and offered.
This is a very good map for us to navigate through the session here. So I thank you for that. Right. And then I would like to hand over to Dara, who's with us from Dallas. Dara, any questions that are coming in from the audiences that we can address here in the introduction?
Yes, we do have a few questions, and I want to just remind the audience that if you do have questions, please type them in the Q&A. We are taking live questions, and if we don't get to answer your questions today, we will send you an email follow-up and answer them for you. So Peter, the first question we have is around enterprises choosing between 5G and Wi-Fi. So how do we guide enterprises in their decision between the two, or do we even have to choose between the two?
Perhaps a good question for you, Tamir. How do we guide person to help people selecting between Wi-Fi and 5G?
That's a question we always get, right? And I think the first way to answer is that, okay, what is the need? If the need is mobility, broad coverage, and security requirements, so then, I mean, private network is much more efficient as compared to the Wi-Fi, but that doesn't disregard, places where you can have leverage from the Wi-Fi connectivity as well. But then there's a whole TCO dimension to look at that we come across as well. In one of the latest cases, probably, which we wrote about in the EMR report also, for a particular reference in terms of a warehouse, they wanted to have that type of connectivity to leverage those type of use cases, making their workers more productive. So it was a question of installing 12 cell sites versus 300 Wi-Fi access points. So I think this is the whole business dimension to it. But yes, as soon as the coverage expands, there's a wider area to cover, and the mobility is a key requirement. Then, of course, in those type of use cases,
I also look at the floor. If there's no carpet, I know I'm going to go with 5G. So I'm in a mine, I'm in a factory, in a warehouse.
Analogy.
If they carpet, then you have got a little bit more flexibility.
I think you simplified it. You couldn't have simplified it in a better manner.
Yeah. Any more questions, Dara?
Yes, we do have one more question. Why do we need slicing for private 5G networks?
So if we look at private 5G networks, why do we need slicing there? Is that not just an opportunity for public networks?
Yeah, I think there's, again, if I look into the strategy from an enterprise perspective, there might be a particular type of enterprise or size of the enterprise who are more OpEx-driven model, and they don't want to invest more on their infrastructure, so then a slice, maybe makes more sense, but then it also requires more planning and investment on a service provider side. I think that's one angle, because you have to manage those type of connectivity, but the business model would be you're able to provide those slices to the enterprises, who are probably more inclined towards this type of model. But whereas there are enterprises, larger industries, who are able to invest and they want to have that infrastructure confined to the space because of the security reasons, because of the data sovereignty issues. So I think this is kind of one way to look at it. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, what type of, I think, enterprise, the industry, and the requirement that we see would matter in the end as well.
I think it is
Sounds
largely...
really good. Yep, sounds really good. So thank you very much for your contribution here and for the introduction. This was give us a great start to work from. So now we're going to take you down to the private network solutions area. So I think when you see people in hard hats, then you know you're getting close to the private networks.
Hey.
Thank you very much.
How's it going?
Doing really good. So help us, Atin, to give it a perspective. We're here in the private network space. What are the different, where are private networks going today, and what do we see?
All right, so what's different from last year is that in the technology adoption life cycle, private 5G has been in the early adopter phase, and it still is for the most part. But there are enterprises who have really matured in their journey to adopt 5G to fix the connectivity problem statement in their journey to digitalization. Now, for those customers, it becomes quite important to take a use case and really scale up. So we've seen some enterprises adopt a private 5G network and really deploy all across their factory. And we're talking about a factory that can be larger than 10, 12 million square foot, one network. So anywhere they need to deploy this large network, both indoor and outdoor, that's where we're seeing adoption. And while this is happening, we have had a lot of learnings from the first deployment, so we can deploy the second factory, the third factory. And these conversion from proof of concepts into live commercial networks where we provide network availability, service level agreements, as well as predictable performance and latency, that's where we're headed right now.
So I guess Ericsson has been a little bit almost given an unfair advantage in terms of understanding the manufacturing sector since we built 5G networks in our factory 4 years ago. You have a lot of things here that describes a little bit what is really going on. What are these private networks in factories used for? Take us through the 3 different steps that you have here on our side.
Absolutely. Well, here you have a connected assembly line. So actually, before I pick this up, there is a manufacturing assembly line where the chassis of a car is moving at the top, and at the bottom, in synchronicity, are moving the robots that are carrying the engine and the body. And at some point, the marriage of the car happens. And when this happens, the workers get on the automated guided vehicle with their torque tools, start bolting the car together. The idea behind bolting this is that you can pre-program this with a torque that is applicable to be able to bolt the car together. Now, why they can actually see if the torque was done right here. Why do they need to connect to 5G? What's important is that there are going to be hundreds of these happening in a minute in one section of an assembly line and thousands of them in a factory any minute. So while this is happening, we are collecting metrics in a central location and gathering insights about this process, such as between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m., there was a 2% drop in all the torque.
Yep.
Now, why is that important is now they can pinpoint exactly where this problem is and go to that assembly line and fix it, because this is responsible for the structural integrity of a car, which is safety for everyone.
Yep. You connected field workers?
Another great use case. This is about connecting the field workers and getting the help of the expert wherever you are. So this is a 4G device today, about to be 5G. It connects directly to the mobile network. You're able to dial to the expert, be able to use both AR, VR functions related to maintenance and operations around a power plant or a factory.
And the coolest thing of all, what is this?
Yes, so this is a use case that truly is applicable to every industry we're in. And this is connecting an automated guided vehicle or an autonomous mobile robot to 5G. This has intelligence on its own in that it can obstacle avoid and stop when it needs to. But due to new regulations, now there has to be a central lock where all the robots have to be connected to a central for failover, manual failover. This is currently connected to our 5G lock right over there, and we can stop the robot anytime we need to.
This is three amazing, really amazing use cases. Give us a feel for how far the private network has come for the manufacturing sector. Yeah. Thank you very much. Beyond private networks, we also have the area of wireless WAN. And
Presley.
Yeah. Why don't you help us understanding a little bit what's going on in the wireless WAN and how is it different from when we met here a year ago?
So in wireless WAN, we have a number of different use cases, and different than a year ago, I think, is that we're seeing more 5G for sure in areas, and the use cases use that 5G network as the main connection into the use places that we talk about, either fixed locations like this restaurant, or with IoT applications, or in vehicles. And I think the 5G allows for many more services and applications to run on top of the basic connectivity, and that's what we see people implementing.
You're talking about a couple of different things, connected smart things, vehicles, connected business. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between them?
The difference is really the location and the use case, I guess. But the premise is that the devices use SIM cards from carriers to bring 5G into the location, whether it's a car, a digital sign, or a restaurant, and that becomes the network. The connection to the 5G becomes the network where all the connectivity for the applications comes from.
And this is sold. How is this sold, and what are the two different business models you're working with?
Good question. We work with resellers, and so most of these are sold through resellers and carriers and managed service providers.
Oh.
So the difference really is that if this is sold through a reseller, then the restaurant owner owns the equipment, and they manage their own, connectivity, SIM cards. They manage all the devices that connect. And they support their own equipment. With the managed service provider, the service provider buys these themselves, but then uses them as an offering to a business so they can open a store and provide their connectivity.
It's really good. So over to the team in Dallas. Do we have any questions on this particular session?
Yes, Peter, we do have a few audience questions. I can't cover them all. We don't have enough time, but I'll read you the first one. They ask, can you please talk about device and sensor ecosystem to support these use cases, IoT, critical, RedCap, etc.?
That's a very important question. What does the ecosystem look like on the device side?
Oh, here you go. It was definitely a challenge a few years ago when we were trying to get into the industries with 4G and 5G. But what devices like Cradlepoint routers allow us to do is be a gateway to the industries. And an industrial gateway allows you to connect any devices that don't natively support 5G, retrofit them, and these have antennas that can actually connect to a 5G network. And this has been primarily the biggest way we've been able to connect some of the robots and AGVs in the industries. And then you have connected devices like hard hats that have inbuilt 5G chipsets and modems that can communicate, and sensors that we saw along the way. So it is developing, it is maturing, but we still got a long way to go.
So I need to put the 5G hard hat on my wish list now. It's not enough with glasses.
Absolutely. If you need good coverage.
Yeah. So any other devices that you think are important from the ecosystem?
I have two.
Yep.
Well, in this actual use case, we have connected devices from our partners. Zebra for point of sale, and it can be used for inventory and scanning. It's connected through Wi-Fi to this device. We also have some Regato sensors that are used often in restaurants to manage temperature, smart ovens, HVAC. And in this case, there's one in this refrigerator where if the door is left open, an alert will go out and show door open or temperature declining so that the restaurant owner can make sure things get set back.
Perhaps I would never imagine that we use it for those kind of things. I think this gave us a very good overview. Thank you for both of you for sharing a little bit what we see in this particular area.
Thank you.
So as we move along here, we're going to move to the next point. Is about this is one area that I'm very fascinated about. We're talking about enterprise virtual cellular network. Help us, Andrew, to get a feel for what is it? This is like seems like you twisted a number of different words together here. What is it?
Yep, so enterprise virtual cellular network. This is about us enabling enterprises actually to roll out 5G connected laptops at scale. So we've developed an eSIM management and orchestration platform that actually allows enterprises to order, activate eSIM profiles on 5G connected laptops. We've then been working with Microsoft actually to then automatically switch between eSIM profiles and actually do this in a seamless way, so we can actually enable zero-touch provisioning for the end user.
So what does this really mean? Because a lot of us have 5G laptops now at Ericsson, but what is it that need to happen on the IT side to really not only making sure that it's 5G in the laptop, but you can actually start using it and becoming really effective?
Yep, so this is about the IT admin actually having visibility and control of data usage, for example, as well as cost. So this now allows, say, a large enterprise like Ericsson actually to scale this out to over 100,000 employees in over 150 countries.
Yeah, and what do you see as the case here? We're all hybrid workers right now, spending time both in the office and home. How does the game change here? Why does it make sense to pursue 5G and starting connecting laptops over the cellular network now?
Yeah, but like you said, it is, things have changed. We're now in the era of hybrid working. So we're only in the office 40% of the time. And when we're working from home, we're not just sat in our home offices. We're working where, it's most convenient for us. So this is actually, moving to a new, paradigm in terms of moving away from site-based architecture, actually to people-centric architecture. So actually people take the connectivity home with them. And if you look at the big picture, this is then about cellular-enabled devices connecting to public cloud-delivered services over the public 5G network.
So all of a sudden, no service in the office and people in the office and connecting with wires is like cellular connected and most applications in the cloud and IT being comfortable with the
Absolutely.
whole process.
This is about people being able to securely connect from their laptop anywhere. So we're looking at enabling zero-touch provisioning, zero-trust security, as well as the best possible performance on a laptop from anywhere.
How will it affect me as a user when I'm there trying to log? I flipped up the screen, and what are the steps I need to take as a user?
So as a user, it's absolutely seamless. You don't have to do anything, Peter. You open your laptop, you will be securely connected to 5G. There's nothing for you to do. This is all about making it seamless for the end user.
So my laptop is going to start working like my phone does.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
much. You
much.
don't have to think about it.
Are there any questions there from Dallas here on this particular topic?
Yes, there are. Someone asked about user experience. So what is the experience of a user on a 5G powered laptop?
What is the experience for the user on a 5G powered laptop?
The experience is just overwhelmingly positive. Being able to connect from anywhere. This is one of those things, once you've tried it once, you can never go back. Always being connected, not having to spend 20 minutes connecting to, public Wi-Fi networks, putting in passwords, signing, terms and conditions. This is all about always being securely connected.
Now I can subscribe to this. I've been using 5G in my laptop for the last 9 months, and on purpose gone to airports and actually sitting out working different locations just for a day and seeing how does it work and so on, and getting rid of like the whole procedure, just getting in and out has been a big help for me. So I'm really looking forward to this, and I think it's an opportunity been in the making since Ericsson started to do built-in modems for laptops in the late 3G era. But I think there's as you say, there's a lot of stars that are aligned for making sure that this can happen right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you.
So next up, we're going to have a deep dive into network or APIs in general, Opel.
Hello.
Network APIs. Warm welcome, Courtney. You've been really deep into all of this. Help us to get a picture of what is Open APIs all about.
Well, network APIs are much about network interoperability, the seamless security for us today, as well as sustainable performance in the future. And it really comprises of the whole ecosystem. So we have application developers, we then have the Vonage GMP layer, and then we have the network exposure functions that are really going to open up the world for monetizing with operators at that network level, which just was missed in 4G. So now they're going to have that opportunity to really participate in that opportunity of monetizing their network. Yeah. So, would you like to see?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So how is this going to work?
Well, so what we have here is the best way to help start with trying to develop new concepts is how do we put it into terms in which people can really understand. And so we've created a story which is called The Journey of the Traveler. Mm-hmm. So many of us travel, we come with different issues, maybe accidents that happen on freeways, weather. So what we've done is we've taken 4 network APIs, 2 in which we've launched, the second one is launching very soon, and then 2 others that are future forward because it's all about Imagine Possible, right? So let me show you here. So what we've done is we've created this really nice interactive engagement so people can really drill into what a network API does and the relationships that it has between the developer to the network. So let's just start with here very quickly, because this is the one that we launched. And there we go. What you can see here is a nice depiction of how it works from a functional layer. So you have in the hot magenta color here, this is where the API developer is going to develop their application. And then you have the Vonage Global Network Platform. Down here is that network exposure function and what the operators are very accustomed to at their operating level. And in this case, with the number verification, it's tapping into the network exposure function and the entitlement server. So this is what occurs in that kind of engagement around a number verification.
When we're working with these kind of things, we are, I guess, very used to in the industry talk about the over-the-top of applications and networks where perhaps under the top. So is this a way to start tying the 2 of them closer together?
It's not only tying them closer together, but really what we're doing is we're demonstrating to not only the operators and also the application developers is that they're going to have a whole brand new platform to develop upon. And in addition to that, it's powered by the 5G connectivity. So stepping back a little bit, think about 5G connectivity with every operator in the world. We've just now completely connected an entirely largest development platform in the world. So it's pretty innovative. And when the operators start seeing that they have the ability to really monetize what they lost out on with over-the-top communication APIs and CPaaS, they're going to be able to really take advantage of all this new innovation that's going to be coming from developers and the development platform that Vonage has been building.
Yeah. How does this relate to what we announced here a year ago, the open gateways and all the standardization that's going on in Camara, Linux Foundation and the Camara project?
That's a great question. So we have been working, last year in the merger announcement, it was all very much about demonstrating what Vonage had already built and what they were doing. And knowing that GMP was going to be this part of it, it was building out really much of that plumbing that needed to happen in order to be able to come to this next step where we are today, where we did launch right before Mobile World Congress, we made our announcement around the Vonage Network Registry. And that's where developers can come to sign up, and they can immediately now get support for the Camara
network APIs that we are bringing into our system to be able to help to support and drive that connection down into the operators.
No. No, but this sounds pretty revolutionary to me, because all of a sudden you're not only connecting A and B in the network, but you're allowing application developers saying what should happen with the different things along the journey through the network as well, and with each and every application having unique requirements and
it's truly an ecosystem.
Yeah.
So, if you want, we can go into one of my favorite. It's my favorite demonstration of how network APIs and
absolutely.
So
network APIs at work.
So here's what we're going to step into, which is really taking advantage of Ericsson's transport eTech usage, and it's all about weather. Now, this is a very forward-thinking API. This is the Imagine Possible, but it is very easily capable of happening very, very soon. Weather's a big deal. It's a big deal everywhere, all over the world. And operators can take advantage of it by that microwave rain attenuation, of being able to manage and measure storms. Yep. So what you can see here is that the developer is developing at this level here with the app server and data storage. And then down here in the network level, it's all about the transport analytics and transport overall. When we go into the actual use case that at Mobile World Congress we've had great success with, it's being able to show in a use case that we've made with a insurance company and an insurance claim. I'm sure that every one of us have either been in an accident or some sort of an accident. And what this is demonstrating is truly the whole ecosystem of it. So Casey is driving on a highway. She is rear-ended by another car. And a lot of it has to do with because it was a weather incident that created the inability for vision. And so she's now dealing with the fact that she's going to go online and she's pulling from her application, her insurance provider's app, and she's going to file that claim instantly. What's great about that is she no longer has to wait days, weeks to be able to get information on that claim. She's submitting it right then and there. So she takes all her pictures, she uploads the information, she then turns around and she submits it. And then on the other side, the actual insurance company is looking at the incident, and they're taking the metadata from that, which is from that transport from down in the operator level, and they are leveraging what happened with that microwave rain attenuation, and they are validating that that actually occurred at that time. And then they turn around and they approve her claim.
So you're combining the data that she is submitting, that she is punching into the application, with other stuff that we luckily in the network understand what actually was triggering her
Exactly.
accident. This is a really good. Join us around the corner here and speak with one of your colleagues and seeing a little bit what's going on in the broader ecosystem. So we've talked a little bit about how open APIs and work. And last year we talked about the Open Gateway and the Linux Foundation and the Camara. Can you help us describe a little bit how far this has advanced in the process?
Yeah, we've come quite some way. So we actually launched yesterday with 7 networks, a new number verification API, as well as some other things. Would you like me to show you?
Yep.
So number verification, I guess most people will be familiar with it, but just to emphasize why we're taking this to market, why we think it's important. Number verification allows for 2-factor authentication, which we all understand, sometimes have trouble with, and pushing that responsibility to the operator to improve the consumer experience and heighten security. Oh. Now what we've done in our announcement yesterday, let me just switch to this screen, is to launch 3 things. And the first thing, which is really important, is the Vonage Network Registry. What this does is it allows the 1.6 million developers we have on our portal today to be able to register their interest in these network APIs so we can help them get connected to all of those CSPs. The process is real simple. Tell us about your organization, tell us about your application, and let us approve it for you with our CSP partners.
So this is to get a feel of whatever you launch, okay, who's interested in doing something with this. So when we talk to service providers, that we have an idea of
It's
that.
better than that. This is live now. This is registering because you want to use, you want to spend money, and you want to add value to your customers in your application. So this is on the truck, ready to go as of yesterday, 8:30 a.m.
Wow.
So this is an example inside the registry which covers the demo application that I can show you briefly, which shows you how number verification works.
Yeah.
The advantage here is, as a Vonage customer, I can register once with Vonage and allow Vonage then to register with all 7 networks that we launched with yesterday. This covers Germany and Spain across the networks that you can see here.
Oh.
But we're planning to add 40 new countries this year, up to 75 CSPs, and also planning to add additional network APIs. So once you register with Vonage, you can take advantage of all that capability as it gets added to the platform.
Wow.
So we've got 2 new APIs here that we've launched alongside Network Registry, which is really where the value comes from the application developer. SIM-swap API is a really simple API. It allows the developer to be able to assess how reliable the SIM is as an authentication basis. What that really does is it allows the operator to tell the developer when the last SIM swap changes. In other words, when the phone number last changed its associated SIM. As a developer, I can then decide whether I can trust that SIM for a SIM-based authentication, or whether I need to use one of Vonage's other products, maybe email or some other channel that doesn't rely on that SIM that could be untrustworthy. If, however, that SIM swap is a pass, then I can move forward to number verification. And this is where we're taking the 2-factor authentication with its added security and taking away all of the hassle for the user and asking the operator to take all of that burden for them. So as a user, I don't have to do anything, but I'm getting more security and a better experience. I'd like to show you that if you've got a second.
Well, but see, before we move there, I think you're giving us very, very clear ideas of how this can be applied. We've kind of given people a 360 view of what open API is and how they can be used, and the fact that some of the very first ones are coming through. So before we move there, any questions on this particular session, Dara?
Hi, Peter. Yes, we do actually have 2 questions and a comment. So the first comment was, you had me at no passwords. So I think our viewers are excited about the security aspect and making the user experience an easy and seamless one. We do have a question about the difference between communication APIs and network APIs. If you could help answer that, please.
Yeah, so the question is, what's the difference between a communications API and a network API?
So it's really harnessing the network, the capability of the networks of our operator partners. So all of that capability that they're buying from Ericsson and they're enabling in their network and allowing that to be extended all the way through to the developer. So instead of just taking simple services like SMS and messaging, it's harnessing the value of the network that's in place today, as well as then creating that foundation so that as 5G capability becomes more widely adopted, those additional services can get presented as well. So it really starts to create a step change in terms of what the application developer can do, because what we're effectively doing as Vonage is connecting them directly with the mobile network operators without the hassle of having to integrate with them directly.
Yeah. No, but I can see big advantages of it, and also the fact that I've always been puzzled which are the APIs we're going to start with. But I think when you put the spotlights on here, let's start with simple things that people immediately getting rid of hassle where we log in and stuff like that. It's perhaps the first thing a user sees.
Yeah, we felt it was really important to solve a real pain point, to make sure that adoption was there, but also to make sure that we're heading down the right path.
Yeah.
So SIM-based, I should say SMS-based OTP today is a real problem for fraud.
Yeah.
So we're trying to reduce that problem both for the application developer as well as the operators, and also improve that for the end consumer and make sure that their experience is delightful.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Why don't you show us a little bit how it works here? I'll stop you a little bit, but
Sure.
I knew you had
it's
some
a
really
very straightforward demo. I am going to just have to grab a mobile phone here because we're going to do this live on our production network. What could possibly go wrong? So it's a simulation, but this is on our network. So this is the Freya Bank, which is the brand that we've created for MWC.
Yeah.
And we've created a simulation of a consumer banking application. So we're all very familiar with the 2-factor login process, right? We have a username and password as our first factor, and we're using our mobile phone as a second factor. The key difference here is I'm not going to get a one-time passcode. I'm not going to have to try and figure out where that came in. Is it SMS? Will I get a voice call? Do I need to open my Google Authenticator? All of the usual hassle we're very familiar with. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the operator to take that burden for me. Let me just unlock this phone again because the timeout's really short. So if I select login on here, It's going to show me a QR code. We can ignore the QR code for now. That's because we've got 3 networks here today that we're showing, and if I needed to switch networks, I can use that QR code. But as a user, all I'm doing here is I'm confirming my mobile, and I'm validating. And what's happening in the background is that mobile number is being received by our operator, in this case it's Orange Spain, and they're checking whether the IP address in their real-time traffic data is matched to the SIM that's associated with that phone number. If we get a match, my secure content gets delivered to me without me having to do anything. If there's a problem, don't forget, the Vonage developer portal gives you access to SMS, to voice, to all kinds of other channels that if you do need to fail over for whatever reason, we've got you covered there as well.
Oh, that's really good. I think that we got one more question from you, Dara.
Yes, the question's around ease of development. So how complicated is this to implement for developers as well as CSPs?
So how complex is this? There's a number of different new things we introduce here. What is the burden like for developers and for CSPs?
I mean, everything that we do at Vonage tries to simplify it for our developers. That's kind of our reason for being here. So first of all, there is some complication that we've tried to solve for in our SDK. So for example, the number verification demo you just saw does require that the developer forces that first API request over the mobile network. That can be done in the, on the phone. We have a client SDK that forces that for you, so the developer doesn't have to take care of anything. So in our developer portal, we've got guides, we've got code snippets, really trying our best to give everything to the developer so that they can get that connected really quickly. From the CSP perspective, we're trying to make sure that we rely very heavily on standards. So all of these APIs that we're launching are Camara compliant, which not only ensures that the user experience is consistent, but it also simplifies things for the operator because there's an open standard that everybody is aware of. You're not repeating or reinventing things as you're connecting to a new operator. The other thing that's key here in this registry, and I didn't mention this before, behind the scenes there's an Operate API specification that we're using, which is a common specification devised by the TM Forum with a consortium of CSP partners, including our input, to make sure that we can pass all of this registration data over those APIs. So the provisioning process is much more streamlined. The experience then for the developer is much better, but also the operator has to do less work in order to access this developer market.
It's really cool. Easier for the user, easier for the developer, easier for the CSP.
That's why we're here.
Thank you very much. I'm sold.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. So the final station for us here tonight, or in the afternoon at home, is we're going to meet Kelly here, and Kelly's going to take us a little bit about digital airspace. Everything I know about mobile is that from the big towers, we point the networks downwards to people.
Absolutely.
But there's an opportunity to change that.
Absolutely, just look above you. The best way to change it is you got to have radio where you want to get coverage, and we're covering much higher than we do with terrestrial nowadays. And so we have something we call digital airspace. And digital airspace is us trying to cover terrestrial, flying objects, and even eventually, hopefully, air traffic.
Yeah. So this is actually about tracking things that are moving up in the air.
Up in the air, and what better way is having a SIM with the identification of where you are and using location to figure out where you are in reference to other things. So digital airspace becomes a combination of where you are relative to others, and being able to describe that so that we can deconflict the airspace.
So what needs to happen in the network in order to realize this?
Yeah, so if you look over here, we can do a good job of covering drones today, but they're limited to their 400 feet flying, okay? Now, if you want to cover flying taxis, other UAVs, then you have to bring up the coverage. And this is what we've done with Intercom in Sweden. So we actually have a 2-layer network, a terrestrial network that does the job of covering people on the ground as well as low altitude UAVs, and then another layer pointed almost directly across, reaching the upper layers up to about 400 meters for the flying taxis, helicopters, and in Sweden they use it for rescue services. Yeah, so.
Wow. So this is very much like the cellular network to some extent becoming 3-dimensional.
Absolutely, yeah. And what we've been able to do is use Ericsson device analytics to actually help characterize that 3D space. So once you want to build it, you have to know that where's that coverage. And our teams are working with all the major operators, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, in order to deliver those analytics so that they can characterize that network. And I don't know if you noticed, all three of them had shared that information through an API to a traffic management system. So one of the things you start seeing is digital airspace connects objects. Those objects then are using cellular coverage, but that is being exposed through APIs to others to manage the airspace.
Wow.
So this is awesome stuff.
So I can see a lot of what do you say, business applications for this, but this is not only something for the private sector. What else would this be?
Well, in defense, we're actually using something similar, because what they're looking to do is actually calibrate, aircraft, for example, right? So when these aircraft are flying, I want to be able to give real-time diagnostics. And how do you do that? You deliver it through the air. Old ways where, you ran some sort of disk, you took the airplane down, and then you ran the data later. Well, if you're wanting to get real understanding of what's going on with the aircraft, real-time data is very important.
Yeah.
And the high bandwidth that we get with 5G makes it even more important.
What beyond these aerial applications do we see in the defense sector that is interesting?
Well, one of the keys of any cellular network is the ability to detect and determine, where people are. So one of the things that we also have in our APIs is what we call SIM density. So you can look at a geographic space and understand how many SIMs are there. And then you could decide, okay, how do I avoid those SIMs in one hand? Or how do I make sure that those SIMs are moving out of that space because of, most cases, disaster would be a good example, wildfires, okay? And our friends over in the API section have actually, exposed that for other services.
It seems like a lot of different things go into each other here. Like when we talk about mission critical network, what that does for first responders, the potential application in the defense sector, and also we're starting to tilt networks a little bit upwards. So not only POP coverage, but plane coverage becoming relevant.
Yeah, and in the case of the plane coverage, you think about all these air taxis that are now about to come on board.
Yeah.
The FAA and other agencies recognize air traffic control systems will not be able to manage that because, there's so many objects. You can't just rely on some human in the middle. So they're working a lot on the autonomy of such operations, and that requires, connectivity, sensing all throughout. And 5G is the best offer of doing that without having to build yet another network.
Really good. Yeah. Thank you very much, Kelly. I think this gives us some ideas about what is the front church with literally trying to push here with these kind of solutions, and that perhaps I've seen thinking about 5G as 3D in terms of getting a pair of glasses and so on. I haven't really thought about it as 3D as we're starting getting coverage in 3 dimensions.
Absolutely, right on. Yeah, but can I point out something else we've had in our booth? Yeah. The MANA team has been awesome in helping to describe what we need for defense as a small, portable solution. This is meant to address the areas where I don't have network coverage. So you see in 5G for defense, they're using commercial networks and their own built networks as kind of a private-public arrangement. Allows them to roam, move around, but there are times where you just don't have a network. And that's where we've delivered ultra compact core.
So this is literally you bringing the cellular network with you.
Absolutely. And what we have here is 4G, 5G core. It's fully redundant. It's got SEP so you can roam if you need to. It's got PCF and NEF to expose APIs that you may want for your defense purposes. We also include our router. And because we want to work for DoD, it's interfacing any RAN. So Open RAN, other RAN, But we put our own baseband here just to get them thinking about Ericsson.
And this is something that typically goes out in a vehicle into the field or something?
You can go in the vehicle, or they're in the base camps with tents. What we call this is a two-man carry, because it'll take 2 men to haul it into this environment.
Yep. Really good. This was our final stop at this station today. I hope you all have had a great evening. It's evening for us, so I'm still trying to remember that it's midday back at home. Thank you very much, Dara, for keeping us honest and filling us in with all the questions from the audience. And Sian for being here in the background, making sure that we have all our different blocks in order here. This is the second session in the live broadcast program we put together for you that was covering the enterprise opportunities. Yesterday, we did consumer. That will soon be available for offline view. And if you're interested in understanding all the technologies behind both the consumer and the enterprise applications, we will do a deep dive in that tomorrow, same noon Central Time. And thank you very much for your attention. I hope you've had a really, really good lunch break, and a little bit different from what you perhaps on the normal lunch. And for most of you, I think you've also enjoyed the fact that you didn't have to fly here, that you can enjoy it without any real travel need. Thank you very much, all of you. Bye-bye.